Welcome back to the Alternative Highs podcast, the number one podcast in Southwestern Ontario. Today, I am joined by a one of my favorite childhood memories. I am joined by Chatham's, one of the major backbones to Chatham, I believe, for pushing greatness into our community, Greg Heatherton, the owner of the radio station in Walsburg, sorry.
Yeah.
Ran the morning show for years and years at, is it okay to?
Oh yeah, CKSY, yeah, no problem, yeah. I wouldn't be here without CKSY, so I never have a problem talking about them, yeah.
Now, with all of that, how did you ever find time to do everything else that you do? Because not only did you make mornings great for a lot of us, you also were there to referee a lot of us, because you refereed a lot of my basketball games.
Yeah.
You read to the children.
Yeah.
You found some time to run for office. Like, what is it that how do you find the time to do all this?
I don't sleep a lot.
No?
Yeah.
You look amazing for a guy that doesn't sleep a lot.
I just find the time. I think, when I look back at, my career and where I've gone in the last 35 years, I've made some sacrifices with family, friends that I do probably stretch myself a little too thin sometimes. But I just always like a challenge, and I always like to be evolving, and I always like to, push myself to do more. And then at the same time, I think when it comes to doing extracurricular things and helping the community and doing those types of things, when you get asked to do them, I'm always honored that somebody thinks that I can help them with their event or their fundraiser and assist them, that it's hard for me to say no. I have a hard time saying no. That's probably why.
I mean, I will put it out there that this is not an easy process. I am very new to this. I started interviewing in July. I am interviewing Chatham's best interviewer, and the process was so simple with you. You were so kind through the whole thing. Like, it just blew me away. I'm not that I would have expected any less. It's just, it's such a great feeling when there's so much positivity. And how do you continue to stay in that mindset?
Yeah, that can be difficult sometimes. So, you brought up earlier on about running for office, and there's a lot of negativity that go on with politics, and I try to stay out of that. I just try to take the high road. There's a lot of times that, people would say something about me, and I just wanted to sound off and just lose my mind on them. And I just decide, we all have a choice. We can hold a grudge. We can be angry. We can flip out on people. We can. I just choose not to. And I just try to look for the best in people. And I think that's the way that we need to, live our lives. I try to treat other people the same way that I would like to be treated. I turn the other cheek probably better than most. I kind of have some philosophies on, when somebody says something about you that's maybe negative, or you're angry about something, and I just kind of, push it aside, and I just look for the best in people. I think that's a good strategy.
And maintaining that, was that something that came with age, or did you have that right from is that something that once you get into the public eye, because like you said, you've been doing this 30 years.
Yeah.
Was that just right from the get-go?
No, I think it was a learned process. I think when I was younger, I might have been a little bit, more cocky, or I didn't have the right attitude, or I thought I deserved special treatment. I think you have that philosophy when you're kind of working in radio and you're doing media, and you think that you're extra special. And I can see it in some people when they're in that field. I think one time I had somebody put me in my place that I was trying to get into. I don't know if it was a bar in Chatham, and I was 25 years old. And I said to the guy, I'm like, seriously, dude, can I not get in here? I know there's a lineup, but do you know who I am and what I do? And he said to me, he goes, no, I don't. And that feeling that I had when he said that to me, it was like one of those aha moments, like I am never doing that again. I just felt like such an idiot that I had used that card that, I thought I was somebody special. And he put me in my place. I'm like, you're not. You're just like everybody else in this line. And I think that really set me back and taught me a valuable lesson. I'm like, I'm just like everybody else.
So it's a great way to go through and manage things. I have the arrogance and cockiness sometimes. It is a hard road to navigate of how to present oneself.
I think it's okay to be confident. I think cocky's another side that I don't like cocky people, but I do like confident people. And sometimes confident people can come across that way. But I think a lot of confident people are successful because they believe in themselves and they believe that they're the best at whatever this presentation is or whatever they're performing or whatever they're doing. I'm very competitive. So I think there's a fine line, but I just always think that you have to treat everyone fairly and win or lose. If you lose a proposal that you got beat out on with another media, I congratulate them on it. I mean, hey, good for you. That was a great proposal. Good for you. Or if it was something else that we're competing for, I just think you always have to try to be the best. And when you're not, and someone shows you that you're not the best today, shake their hand and congratulate them and move on. And then learn from it. You learn a lot more from losing than you do from winning. Yeah. Like that's what I've learned. And I've, lost some things along the way, but I've learned a lot from them every time I lose.
It's amazing to hear you speak like that and talk on it, because it's a wonderment for everybody. I'm sure. Like I struggle with it sometimes too. And I have been humbled and I've been into spots. So I like your philosophy there. With going from working for somebody, CKSY, and then going into your own, because I can't imagine that being a very simple. I like that's got to be the starting of the craziest journey of life, is starting a radio station.
Yeah, that was interesting. There's no question. And keep in mind, I had never managed before either. I mean, I'd always worked for someone else. I was doing a morning show, and I always kind of felt like when I was doing the morning show at CKSY, I was my own boss. I had a job to do. I knew what that job was. And, I had goals of each morning show when I turned the microphone on, what I wanted to do, but I was technically working for somebody else. I had a program director, I had a general manager, and I had another owner that I had to deal with. So there was 3 people above me that I was working for. And I'd never managed people, but what I did do well while I was at CKSY was I just worked with everybody in every office, whether it was the writer, the producer, the salesperson, the news, production, programming, general manager. I worked with all of them and I got to understand their jobs really well. And that really benefited me when I started my own radio station. But at the same time, I had no freaking clue what I was doing, right?
I can't even imagine.
Like it was, and all we did, we just put a list together. Okay, so here's what we have to do. We're going to start our own radio station. So we got to put together a business plan for the CRTC. We got to get approval. So that was step 1. And that step took probably 3 months to get through that step to make it all attractive to the CRTC so they would accept it. Because ultimately, if you put together a package of a radio station that you want to start in a community, the CRTC, if their plan doesn't look good, they'll say no, and they won't give you a frequency. So that's step 1. Then after that was approved and they said, yeah, then we just went through the recipe. Okay, so I guess we need a tower with an antenna on it. How are we doing that? So let's book somebody to build a tower. Let's get the antenna ordered. Now what do we have to do? Okay, we're going to need a transmitter house to put all that equipment in. So we're going to have to build that. All right, where are we finding the location for that? All of those pieces. And I went through the recipe and okay, so that's done. So now we need to build studios. How many studios do we need? We're going to need a phone system. We're going to need music. What kind of music we're going to play? Where do we get all the music from? Where's the copyright infringements that we might have to deal with? How do we do that? So, getting all of that stuff in place. And then I guess we need some people. So,
and how does that look though? Because I'm sure the stuff that you need, it was hard, but how do you put the people together to make that all the
Yeah.
gears run so nicely?
It was pretty cool that we never put an application out to work for our radio station. We handpicked everybody that came and worked for me in Wallaceburg. So the production person, I knew her from working at CKSY, and I knew where she lived. And I said, I'd love you to work with me. And she said yes. A part-time person that was working at CKSY, CFCO, I thought, he is like a talent. And I knew his parents, and I'm like, you gotta come work with me. So that was Jay Smith. The production person was Dana Haggith, two people that I loved working with, and I respect their ethics and their work ethics. And then I needed a writer. Well, I'd worked with this writer at Blackburn, and I called her up and like, I'd like you to come work with me. Okay. So we just handpicked everybody.
That's so amazing.
And they all said yes. Like, I was still amazed that everybody we picked said yes. It was awesome. And so that part was great. And I still I'm always thinking about who's the next person I'd like to see work at CKXS. So I always have that feeler out there of, who could that be? But we hardly ever put an application out for, a job. People come to me, I save the resumes, and then, I kind of think, okay, I'd like to meet that person. And the production person that we have right now is a great example. Tony Sakachi, who was working at CKLW doing some work and was looking for, something else. And his dad had reached out to me 2 years ago and said, my son graduated from Fanshawe. I'd really like you to look at him. And I'm like, I don't have anything right now, but, I'll get his resume.
Yeah.
And he goes, I think you'll really, really like working with him. And then a year later, Tony reaches out to me and says, I'm looking, to expand. I like some more hours. Could I get, a job with you? I'm like, we may have something. And, oddly enough, I talked to your dad a year ago, and I know your dad has passed away since, but yeah, I'd like to talk to you. So Tony and I met. I really liked him, and I showed him the message I got from his dad.
That's amazing. That
your dad was working for you.
Yeah.
And, when you said you reached out to me, like, I've had this conversation about Tony, I'm sure, with his dad. And I looked it up, and there it was. And I showed Tony, like, your dad is like down? Smiling from above, knowing that you and I are talking right now, and I'm about to hire you.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah. So I've been lucky with people that have come and worked with us that have, and have moved on, which I always support. I want people to, go to their next level, their next step. So yeah, I've been lucky with the people that I've worked with.
How do you expand on that though? Like, that's such a beautiful thing. Do you make it bigger?
Well, we have. So, we've grown. So in 2017, we started a second station, or bought a second station up in New Liskeard. So we have a second station there. I've got a third station that we started in 2020, which is in Listowel, Stratford area.
Yeah.
And then a fourth station that we bought in 2021 in Godridge and Kincardine. So, our operation has grown to 4 radio stations now with that same mindset of community involvement, help people. It's not about, always the dollar. It's about making our community better. That's step one. And if you do that, then profits will follow shortly thereafter. So we have kind of grown it.
I did know about the list. Well, I did. The fourth one, I didn't know that one. How is there multiple you want to go?
I'm done. I think, my business partner might be watching this, but 4 it really stretches me pretty thin. It's hard for me because I want to have my hand in a lot of
make sure what's going out is
I've got a great general manager that's handling Kincardine, Godridge, Listowel, and that's Nick Cadot, and he's a hard worker, and he's got those under control. So I'm not as involved with those as I used to be. I'm still, though, regularly doing work for those radio stations. But I think I'm good at 4. I don't want.
Seems pretty.
That's good enough for me.
Yep, that's with the shows that aren't close to home. Do you do any of the talk shows?
Yeah. So a little bit, not as much. I try to hand it off. I don't want to get in the way of Tanner and Robin, who do the morning show. And I try to stay out of their hair just because I don't want people to be confused thinking that I'm coming back to do the mornings, because I'm not. I mean, it's Tanner and Robin's show now. They do a great job. They're talented. It's probably, I hate to admit it, but Tanner and Robin, I think, do a better show than Robin and I did. They've got a great gel there. They work really well, and kind of like a ham and egg kind of combo. But I do a lot of commercials. You probably hear my voice in a lot of commercials. I do some live on sites, and then I do a show on Sunday mornings, which is the Acoustic Sunday. And we focus on acoustic songs. So rock songs that but done a different way. So I host that show on Sundays from 8 to 11. But that's really the only on-air stuff that I'm doing now.
I was sitting there, I thought to myself, how does the best radio voice, like you have the best voice, how does he stay keen? How does he... is the wife got a lot to say about that?
Trust me. When I signed off in 2021, July 16th was my last show that I did mornings on CKXS. And it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, to turn it off. Yeah. And for the next month, I would be driving home and I'd be thinking about what I'm going to talk about tomorrow morning on the morning show. And then I would get home and I'd realize, I don't do a morning show anymore. All I'm doing is coming up with content that I'm going to talk to my wife about now. It was hard to give that up. And it still is. I still want to be on the morning show, and I still want to be a broadcaster, but I know it's not my time.
Yeah.
I'm proud to, see Tanner, who's now taken this as the morning show host, and grow it, and, be the guy that he is now. And he does things a little bit different than me, which is great. So it's just not my time. It's time for me to hand it off to somebody else.
And a struggle, I'm sure. It's the biggest
no question.
Struggle.
I love it.
How would you plan? Like, I put a little pin in when you said I would be on the drive home. How does one come up with that content for the next day, for 5 days a week, for however many days that you're on air a year?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah.
Because I have a hard time once a week.
I think you're doing pretty good, because I love the fact you're doing this without notes. And I have a lot of notes. When you're on radio, you can have notes.
Yeah.
And because people don't see you. But I would do some planning, or I would just take in around me, look at what's happening around you. So, coming here today, the leaves are changing. People are wearing sweaters now. Pools are closing. Golf has got another month left. We're in the, getting ready for the World Series. All of those things are in my head. And then I would think about, what's the content, or what's the topic that people want to hear about tomorrow morning. We call it top of mind awareness, TOMA. And I'd always think, what do people want to know about? What is that? Halloween's coming up. What are the top costumes this year for Halloween? What's the dumbest thing that you ever wore on Halloween? How many candies are you handing out this Halloween? Do you hand out the big chocolate bars? The small chocolate bars? What's your favorite chocolate bar? Do you hand out things at Halloween that you like, just because when people don't come and get them and you have them all left over, you get to eat them? All of that stuff is kind of in my head.
I don't know how you come to all that so quickly. I know you've been doing it years, and it's been like just a role, I'm sure. But just all that, I was like, oh, wow, I should really pay attention a little bit more here and really start, like...
I think it's easier content if you have a good recipe or plan. And I would, either think that, okay, Monday, I want to make it about small business. So I'd make sure we're going to do something about a business that I saw in town that I want to give a plug to, that I want to support. Tuesdays, I might make about movies and talk more about entertainment, since it's cheap night at the movie theater. Wednesdays, I might want to focus on sports. We'll make that day about maybe some local sports and a local kid in sports that is from Chatham, Kent, that's doing something great. So if you know a little bit of what if somebody tells you, like, paint a picture, it's hard to paint a picture. But if they say, hey, can you paint what your favorite barn is that you ever saw in your lifetime? You can think to yourself, there is one that I saw. This is the one I'll paint. Mm-hmm. So if you have a little bit of insight or an input or a suggestion, you can create the content. But sometimes the hard part is looking at a piece of paper with nothing on it and like, what am I going to talk about? That is kind of hard to do.
Well, that is difficult. But what if you're in that interview, and what if you just can't break that person's barrier?
Yeah.
What, did you have those
No
moments?
question. I mean, that's always going to happen.
I can't imagine it didn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, if you've got a way that you want to draw the interview to go, and sometimes it goes down another path, you might have a question that you want to ask, that you want an answer to. You just got to go back to it. But I think that's the best part. I think about what you do, and I've watched some of the podcasts that you've done, is that it's organic. Just, let it go down the path and then see where that takes you. I think that sometimes is the best part. Listen to what the answer is, and then you can come up with your next question from the answer that they just gave, because it shows you're listening. And it might take you down a path that, you weren't thinking, like, wow, that interview went totally different than I was expecting. But at the same time, there are sometimes you need an answer to a question.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're talking to Wayne Gretzky and you say, like, what is the greatest goal you've ever scored? And if he'll take you down a path, like, no, seriously, Wayne, it had to be 1984 when you guys won the first Stanley Cup. I mean, that goal, that has to be your favorite, right? I mean, you can go that way. But I think interviewing and what people say, just listen to their answers and then see what your next question is from their answers.
It's become, I had never interviewed before July of this year. It has become my new, I find myself in every situation like, oh, that was a podcast. But I put another pin in. Who is your coolest interview you ever did?
The one that I probably loved the most, that I asked one question to in a scrum, was Tiger Woods. That I got a chance. I love golf. And at the time, and it would have been 2000, Tiger was the pinnacle of golf, and it had changed golf. And I think that the amount of purses in golf tripled because of Tiger Woods. He just brought golf to another level. And to be in a scrum with Tiger Woods at a setting like this with 10 other announcers, broadcasters, to stand there with a mic and ask Tiger Woods a question, that was one of the cooler moments for me, meeting a celebrity and asking a question.
Do you remember what your question was?
It was something stupid. It was how do you think you played the back nine today? Because I think he shot like 32 or 31. It was like a really good back nine. And his answer was like, well, obviously pretty good. Like, it's like the dumbest question, right? But, a little starstruck. That's, talking 25 years ago, I was a little naive. But I loved that moment, just being around him in his aura, because he had an aura, no question. But ultimately, my favorite all-time interview is Chris Hadfield. To talk to a local guy that is from Sarnia, Ontario, who orbited around the earth thousands of times, and just had such a poignant, understandable way to describe being an astronaut and being in outer space, was like, I did not want the interview to end. He was the best. I can't imagine I'm having my moment right now. It's in longevity in all of this. Do you get to the point where you're just like, I gotta get through this. How do I muscle through this? Or is it still just as exciting as 25, 30 years ago? Yeah, I'd say it's just as exciting for me. There are, I'd say, more today muscling through, like you said, that you have some weeks and some days that you kind of just got to muscle through and push yourself to put in your 8, 9, 10-hour workday. A little bit harder than maybe what it was 15 years ago. But I still love it. I mean, I love talking. I'm sure it's to the point where some people are like, oh gosh, Greg, just be quiet. But I love meeting people. I love hearing their story. I want to help people. It's in me to really, understand what people need and want, and how I can help do that, or tell their story, right? Yeah. I mean, I still want to hear people's stories, and then I want to share it with somebody else. Even if now I don't get to do it on radio, I get to do it with 5 friends Friday at Sons of Kent, saying, you'll never guess who I met.
Yeah.
And then tell that story. I just love, telling a story about good people in our community.
It is I've loved every minute of this, Greg, and I really want you to know how much I appreciate this.
My pleasure.
Before I shut this down, you did say you love golf. I love golf.
Yeah.
Should we get out for a round of golf?
I think it's a great idea. I think, do you have a crossover grip?
Yeah.
Is that how you swing? You swing, like, do you swing right hand on the bottom and left on the top?
Yeah.
And you're right-handed.
Yeah.
Okay, you're swinging. I looked at it like, I thought it was cross-handed at first when I saw you swing.
It's because I can't move my lower body from, I have a spinal cord injury.
Okay.
I was in a car accident, and that, I don't have feeling. So I got to really lock it in because I'll fall down.
Gotcha.
So once that balance is set, it's just the way the body swings. It's only the upper body. So it looks, I've seen video and I was like,
I saw your swing, right? I think you had it on social media.
Yeah.
And I saw your swing, like, that's a different swing. But now that you tell me you've had a spinal cord injury, that you're playing golf is incredible.
It was,
I love golf. Yeah. Absolutely. Anytime.
What's your golf course of choice in the local?
I'm a member at Maple City. I grew up playing at Ridgetown.
Yep.
I have a fond spot for Ridgetown Golf Course, but we are blessed here. Country View Golf Course has taken their golf course to another level. They like, kudos to the whole ownership team there and those that are working on the ground.
That's where I golf at.
It has gone to another level. I think Willow Ridge is probably the best value of any golf course in southwestern Ontario. Deer Run is another great golf course that we have to play.
We have a lot of great.
Wardsville, I love playing Wardsville
Just played
too.
there.
27 holes, great family that own it. Links of Kent, another good one. Like, we're lucky. We've got good value golf courses.
All the way around.
Yep. We don't have to pay a lot of money to play golf around here. So, and I'm pretty thrifty. Yep. So a little frugal, my friends would tell me. So I like a good deal. So no, we're pretty blessed. I think all the golf courses are great. I think we need to have a time where we pick the best 18 holes of Chatham, Kent, and to share a little bit of every golf course and what those holes would look like. That would be my take.
Oh, I see you do your show sometime on a golf course.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got to figure out how I can do something like this. I want to go golf. I just started it this year, and I bet you I get it 4 or 5 times a week.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
So. Well, hey, my dad told me that find a job you do for free and then find somebody dumb enough to pay you to do it. And I have done that with my career in broadcasting, and that, I get to be on a golf course, get to play golf that day, and then do a broadcast and talk about the golf course. I mean, like, who gets to do that?
It can't get much better than that.
That's why I'm happy all the time.
Amazing. Greg,
thank you
for your
Dustin.
time.
Yeah, pleasure meeting you. Thanks for this today. Thanks for inviting me.